Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. We were discussing Brahmajala Sutta, the very first sutta in the Digha Nikaya, and it is actually dealing with various wrong views. And the cause for this explanation was because of a discussion or happened between the Buddha and the Sangha. The cause was actually coming from certain outside source. One time Buddha and the Sangha was traveling from Rajagaha to Nalanda, which is a fairly long path. And at that time another two ascetics called Suppiya and his follower called Brahmadatta also was accompanying the Buddha and the Sangha. And at that time Suppiya was really criticizing the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, while Brahmadatta was trying to defend, trying to praise. So at that moment, afterwards actually there was a discussion among the Sangha that how Buddha quite correctly mentioned about different viewpoints happening in one's mind. At that moment Buddha interrupted and then explained the Sangha that whenever someone is criticizing, whenever someone is blaming, criticizing, looking down, either the Buddha, the Dhamma or the Sangha, one should not get sort of angry, one should not become resentful or upset on that account. Rather one should carefully recognize, one should carefully understand whether what they are telling is correct or wrong, and accordingly, properly, one may peacefully mention that if something is really not correct, one can inform that is not correct, and if there are certain proper criticisms, that also can be admitted. On the other hand, if someone is really praising, there are also Buddha mentioned that is also not something immediately which needs for someone to become really pleased, happy or elated. Rather one should maintain an equanimous mind to understand whether they are telling something sort of an exaggeration or whether it is really grounded. On that account also Buddha mentioned, okay, after proper analysis one can either accept it or reject it, one can admire it or basically abandon it. And on the other hand, another very important point that Buddha highlighted is whenever a typical worldly uninstructed person, whenever he is praising the Buddha, it is for some trivial points, trivial matters, typically they are praising the Buddha. They can't understand the real service, the in-depth or profound service that Buddha has delivered. Rather they are typically seeing the outside, that is merely sometimes certain amount of morality related factor, sila related factor they are using to praise the Buddha. But what are the real profound points that if one is properly needs to praise the Buddha? So that is what now Buddha is explaining. Actually he started explaining the whole sila related to himself, related to an high ordained monk. He started explaining all the morality aspects, starting with short section, the middle section and the longer section. And after that he started explaining about the 62 kinds of wrong views. Typically a spiritual person can get entangled, can get tangled. So basically there are only very few people that have certain inclination towards spirituality, and that's how they are sort of being interested about leading a spiritual life and not merely indulging sensual gratification, and they want to find out the truth. That's how they are trying to spend fair amount of time in spiritual goals. But unfortunately most of them get trapped in various wrong views. So that is the main issue that highlighted here in another sense, that those wrong views now Buddha is explaining here. And again and again he highlights, okay, this is a very deep, very profound point that sometimes people get trapped, certain spiritual seekers get trapped but Buddha has seen them clearly, and as a result of that he didn't get trapped in them, rather he is completely liberated. So that is how he is basically pointing out how, on what ground or which ground, that if someone were to praise the Buddha, what should be the proper ground for one to praise the Buddha. Already we have covered 8 wrong views. So there are altogether 18 wrong views related to the past. And among them, there are 4 talking about the Sassatavada, or what we call the eternalism. And they are talking about an eternal world and an eternal self. And there are such 4 views, wrong views, and that is already we explained last week. And then we come across a partly eternal and partly non-eternal views. There are 4. That means certain people are eternal, certain others are not eternal. So this sort of views are there. And Ekaccha Sattvatavada, and that is also explained last week. And altogether we have covered 8 wrong views. Now we will get into the other wrong views which are covered in this sutta, and we can talk about Antavada and Anantavada. Antavada and Anantavada. So Anta means kind of a limit, kind of a boundary, and they are talking about a certain finite space, certain finite world, certain finite existence, and therefore they are called finitists. And certain others are objecting that, they are telling okay, it is infinite, so they are called infinitists. And so the wrong view 9 is based on this sort of finite. They consider the whole world is finite. Actually, how they achieve it is basically they are coming from the human realm, and they become an ascetic. They were able to spend fair amount of time on meditation. As a result of that, they were able to look at certain boundary of the world. So their concentration is such that they visualize some sort of a boundary. So when they are trying to recognize various kinds of beings, and they come out some sort of a boundary in those existence. Different beings are there, and these people can expand their vision, but it has a limit. So accordingly they decide, okay, this world is very much like a circle, bounded by a circle. So within this circle people exist, the beings exist. After or beyond that circle there is no existence. So the world is sort of bounded. So the world is finite. So, and they are quite sure about it because they have seen it, perceived it, using their sort of meditative vision, meditative power, concentration power. And so they simply say, okay, I perceive the world as finite. Therefore I know that this world is finite and bounded by a circle. This is the first case, first view with respect to what we call finite state, finite space, finite world. So they are actually finitists. And then there's another wrong view. They are calling the opposite. They also are meditation related. So they also develop their minds. They also have jhana or whatever the concentration. And through that concentration, their vision becomes infinite. They can keep spreading, but there is no limit. So when they are trying to comprehend the end, they can't find a end. So they keep on looking at, but there is no end. So they ultimately decide, okay, this world is infinite. And they have such kind of a concentration so that they are ultimately deciding, okay, this world is infinite. And so they are infinitism, they are infinitists, and so they reject the previous one. So if someone is telling, okay, this world is finite and sort of boundaries there. So they basically reject that because they simply confirm, okay, I have a vision. I can see through my concentration power that this world is infinite. So they basically explain that to the others, and others to start believing that. So this infinitism is another kind of a view, wrong view, that they start proclaim. And then we come across the 11th wrong view, and they actually say the world as finite up and down and infinite across. It's a kind of mixture of it. So when they are concentration being spreaded, expanded towards the up, so they find it kind of a boundary. When they are trying to expand their concentration to the down direction, below direction, again they find a boundary. But when they want to recognize the boundary, when they are expanding, spreading their concentration across, that means within their sort of in a horizontal way, when they are expanding their vision, their meditative power, so they find it's keep on going on and on, there is no limit. So they ultimately decide the world is finite as well as infinite. Because finite in the sense, when they are spreading it to the up and the down, it is finite. But when they are spreading their vision across, they find it infinite. So therefore they come to a conclusion, okay, this world is finite as well as infinite. So they reject the previous two views. When someone is telling, okay, this world is finite, they reject it. When someone is telling this world is infinite, that is also they reject. So basically they accept this sort of a wrong view. Part of it is infinite, part of it is finite. There is another wrong view that people would come across. Then the other one actually is not based on meditation, concentration, but it is based on logic. So he is a logician, he is a Brahmin, or he is an ascetic, not much interested of meditation, but rather he is much onto the reasoning. He has a logic-based thinking. Logical thinking is very powerful in him, so he basically try to logically think in this way, logically think is in that way. So ultimately he argues, this world is neither finite nor infinite. So he come to a conclusion, logically, after thinking, after reasoning, after pondering, he come to a conclusion telling, okay, this world is neither finite nor infinite. So when someone is telling it is finite, that is also wrong. When someone is telling this is infinite, that is also wrong. If someone is telling this is finite and infinite, that is also wrong, because I can clearly say, okay, this world is neither finite, neither infinite, nor infinite. So he come to another wrong view. Now these are the 4 wrong views explained by the Buddha, where finitism and infinitism come to the picture, where certain one says this is finite, another one says this is infinite, another one says this is finite and infinite, another one says this is neither finite nor infinite. So these are the wrong 4 views. And Buddha mentioned, okay, these monks, the Tathagata understands, these viewpoints thus grasped and adhered to will lead to such and such destinations in another world. So these are wrong views. So as a result of grasping such wrong view, ultimately what happens is, so whoever the person get trapped in it, they are unable to look at out of that. So they being bounded, they being very much like trapped. And with such a mind, when they pass away, so they will be born at a sort of a unfortunate state, because this wrong view is such a dramatical thing, a drastic kind of a hindrance to the mind. So the mind can't get released, instead mind get trapped again in the samsara. And so Buddha mentioned, okay, these monks are those other matters, profound, hard to see, hard to understand, because Buddha has understood this. Buddha has understood why these people are telling like this and what are their consequences for grasping such view. So he basically have seen that drawback, and he was able to recognize that drawback. So basically he has abandoned all these wrong views. As a result of that, his mind is liberated. Now with that liberated mind, he proclaims, okay, these are wrong views. Actually, one person actually asked, what is the view of right view? That Buddha also talk about Sammaditthi. But as we discussed, I think last time, Sammaditthi has two types. The first one is mundane, where we basically accept an existence of a person, existence of a self, and accepting this world, that world, another world. So this is very much like, to some extent it is bounded with ignorance, but giving us a fairly good ethical background, fairly good ethical ground, where one accepts one's karma. As a result of that, one becomes a good person. So he is now responsible of his actions, and therefore he is careful not to do some unwholesome action. Rather, he is trying to be careful only to conduct wholesome actions. So in one sense, it is useful for himself as well as useful to the others. But Buddha doesn't limit his teaching to that level, but he goes towards the supramundane Sammaditthi, Lokottara Sammaditthi. So there he explained through Vipassana how one can understand the impermanent, how one can understand the unsatisfactoriness, how one particularly understand the non-self. So as a result of that, he basically explained particularly the non-self, non-governability, and not finding any permanent eternal soul. So the teaching moves towards non-self teaching. And things are happening due to causes and conditions, and ultimately one cannot grasp anything in the world. Nothing can be grasped, nothing is worthy of grasping, nothing is worthy of attaching. So that is how Buddha explained the Lokuttara Sammaditthi, where ultimately mind has to become utterly freed without grasping anything, not grasping any sensuality related phenomena, not grasping anything mental, not even a perception, and not even any sort of a viewpoint. And whatever arises is suffering, whatever passing away is nothing but suffering. So this becomes one's understanding. As a result of that, mind becomes utterly freed. So therefore, right view in that sense is something which does not allow someone to grasp anything at all. So the understanding basically telling, okay, not worthy of grasping, not worthy of adhering, not worthy of attaching. So ultimately mind becomes free and free, so nothing to grasp. So even here Buddha highlight, now even these four wrong views, finitism and infinitism, so that also Buddha say, okay, Buddha understood but not grasp any of them. So basically he has relinquished those and his mind is liberated. So this is something very profound. So therefore this is something excellent beyond mere thought that Buddha through his own knowledge understood. And after understanding, he is proclaiming it. He basically explained it to the others also. So this is something very profound that Buddha to be praised. Actually, we need to understand particularly the depth in the sense that it's very limited people that who incline towards spirituality, because the vast majority are engulfed with sensuality. So they have their lot of priorities with respect to their occupation, with respect to their family, with respect to their society, with respect to the politics, with respect to climatic change, this and that. So their minds are utterly involved with all that different things, but only a very minor amount of people who actually think of spirituality, kind of finding a way out rather than trapped in the samsara. But unfortunately, even that minority get trapped in wrong views. This is a kind of a pathetic situation. So to them, to that minority who actually has an interest, who actually have some spiritual component, when they also get trapped in some sort of a wrong view, so it's a kind of a hazard. Now, when Buddha understood that all these as wrong views, and he basically has abandoned them and was able to liberate his mind, it's a great finding. Then he can actually explain to the others, okay, this kind of a danger is there. This kind of a drawback is there. So don't get trapped in them. Don't wrongly understand things. Don't come to wrong conclusions. And don't adhere to them. And basically he explained how these wrong views are generated and how various distortions or inversions happen during our sense-based level, during the recognition level, what we call the sanya vipallasa, and at the thinking level, the pondering level, what we call as a chitta vipallasa, and ultimately coming to a decision, coming to a conclusion. So that is also wrong, and that is at the ditti vipallasa. So likewise he explained stage by stage how people would reach these wrong views, and ultimately the idea is to abandon them, not to grasp them, not to get trapped in them, and to keep the mind released. Now we can move to another section, and what we call the amaravikepavada. Amaravikepavada, eel wrigglers. So they don't have a kind of a certain answer. So they are not certain on anything. So they simply like eel wrigglers. So like a fish eel. So when one want to try to catch an eel, he somehow slips. It somehow slips, not being able to caught. Now typically when someone is in a debate, so one can't give a sort of answer which is not well rounded. One can't say one thing at one time and tell another thing at another time. Rather, one has to stand what one is talking. But these people, on the other hand, somehow try to escape, giving sort of a cunning way. They somehow try to escape, not giving a certain answer. Now, there are also 4 types of wrong views, Buddha explained. There is an ascetic. The first one he is explaining has the 13th wrong view. And he actually does not know really the truth. And he does not really know what is exactly good or bad. So he basically knows for himself that I do not in truth know whether this is good or bad. Not knowing which is right, I might declare that is good or that is bad. He honestly knows that he don't know, but he still wants to tell others. He still wants to tell others that this is bad or this is wrong. If he is telling like this, so there could be a certain amount of distress that would come when others might question. So then it can be a sort of a hindrance to him, because others are asking this way, that way. When he is giving a particular answer, when he is giving a certain answer with respect to the good and bad. So basically, therefore, he is in a cunning way trying to escape. So he is telling like this: thus fearing to lie, adhering to lie, abhorring to lie, he does not declare a thing to be good or bad. Now he doesn't say something is good, he doesn't say something is bad, because he knows that he don't know it properly. He doesn't have proper understanding about on those things. So when someone is asking, okay, this is good, so he say, okay, I am not telling it is good. I am also not telling it is good. So somehow he know how to escape. When asked about this or that matter, he resorts to evasive statements and wriggles like an eel. So he somehow used some harsh words or somehow used some bad words in an evasive way, and he simply escapes rather than giving a proper answer, rather than giving a certain answer. He escapes. I don't say this, and I don't say that. I don't say it is otherwise, and I don't say it is not. I don't not say it is not. It's very difficult to catch him. Either way, someone is asking, he know, okay, I don't say this, I don't say that. Likewise, he is somehow like an eel. Basically, he tried to escape. So, this also become one wrong view. It's called one type of Amara Vikepavada. And then the 14th one, and he himself know very well that whether something is good or bad, and if he declares something is good or something is bad, and he say, okay, I might feel desire or lust or hatred or aversion. So I might get certain kind of an inclination, kind of an attachment to what I say. So therefore, I should not stand anything. I should not accept basically anything, stand on anything as a view. So he basically somehow trying to escape here also. So he wants to avoid any kind of a distress, he wants to avoid any kind of an attachment, and fearing attachment, he simply use evasive statements to escape from any kind of a debate, any kind of an argument. And so here also he is escaping like an eel. The fish called eel, he is also trying to escape because he don't want to attach to anything. Now here this attachment and the proper, here this detachment and the proper detachment is quite different. Now Buddha is also recommending about detachment, but based on proper ground. So one may develop mindfulness, one may develop fair amount of concentration and maintain an equanimous mind, balance the effort, and then one can see the things truly as they truly are. A proper step-by-step path is there. A practical approach is there. So one may try to understand the reality. Now, when one understands reality, so the one characteristics of that understanding, one characteristic of that knowledge is it is rather than holding anything, rather than attaching to anything, it promotes detachment. Because one has seen it is impermanent. One has seen it is non-self or unsatisfactoriness. So what's the point of grasping? It is not worthy of grasping. It is not worthy of attaching. So that's a sort of a insight that one would develop. As a result of that insight, now minds slowly abandon things, relinquish things, rather than attaching to things. But here, this person hasn't gone through that sort of a practice. Rather, he basically comes up with a wrong view. Okay, if I am attaching to something, anything, I should get sort of caught. So he fear attachment, so he is using evasive words to overcome any kind of an argument. So this is another wrong view, a type of Amara Vikepavada. And then 15th, does not in truth know whether a thing is good or bad. He thinks I might declare that is good or that is bad, but there are ascetics and Brahmins who are wise, skillful and practice debates. Now he knows that there are certain Brahmins who actually practice debates. They know exactly how to reason out, how to argue. And there are people who are very much like give up gives such kind of very interesting argument, very interesting logics, and they go around the city and debating with others and basically destroying others' views, and they basically have very sharp wisdom. And if they come and cross-examine me, demanding my reasons and arguing, and then I might not be able to reply. So then if I can't reply them properly, then I become somewhat bewildered, somewhat distressed. So it could be an hindrance for me. And basically he fear debate. So fearing debate is the prominent part here. So fearing debate, he is now trying to escape. When someone is trying to argue, he escapes from this way, that way. When he is asking, are you telling this? I am not telling this. He asks, are you telling that? Okay, I am not telling that. So likewise he is wriggling, slip through by using evasive words, evasive statements. So here the point is that he is afraid of arguments, afraid of debating with the other people. So he is using evasive language, using tricks to escape from them. So that is also becoming another kind of wrong view. Then we will move to the 16th wrong view. And this person is utterly stupid, completely dull. And because of his dullness and stupidity, when he is questioned, he basically gets into evasive statements and wriggles like an eel. If you ask me whether there is another world, if I thought so, I would say there is another world. But I don't say so. And I don't say otherwise. And I don't say it is not. And I don't not say it is not. So you can see it's a very confusing way he is answering. He doesn't have a certain answer. There is no certainty in his answer. Whatever the way people would ask, he knows how to escape. He's giving a kind of slipping type of an answer. And so all different difficult questions, whenever someone is coming and asking, so he is escaping. So different questions are there, like whether the world is finite or whether the world is infinite, whether another world exists or another world does not exist, whether the Buddha, whatever this Arahant, is existing after death or not existing after death. So those kinds of sometimes people come and ask all those type of questions, and he basically knows how to escape from them. And he merely use kind of wriggling technique, slipping technique to overcome all that. Now these are the 4 ways Buddha say, okay, the ascetics and Brahmins who are eel wrigglers resort to evasive statements. And here also Buddha concludes, okay monks, Buddha understood that, Tathagata has understood that, and as a result of these wrong views, I understood that what would be the repercussion, the consequences. So he didn't grasp any of these. He has abandoned, relinquished all these. And this is another important, profound, hard to see point. Only a wise person can understand. Okay, these are another ground that if someone is to properly praise the Buddha, if someone is rightly speaking about the Buddha, these 4 wrong views is another ground that where Buddha thoroughly understood it, abandoned them, so they kept his mind freed. And then we come to another section called chance originationists, what we call adicca samuppannavada. So they are saying particularly things are merely happening due to sort of chance. Everything is kind of random. Things are happening by mere chance. So first type, how such wrong view appears. So there are interesting point is very much like they were in a world where they don't have proper perception. So their awareness is very, very less. And anyway, after dying from there, they are being reborn in a human realm from previous Deva realm. So that Deva realm, the previous Deva realm, is very much like sort of an unconscious Deva realm. Here probably we can think about what we call that asanya satta. Now there is no perception, there is no sign at all. So therefore their minds are very much like stuck. Even though there is an existence, mind is very much like stuck. But when they pass away from that, if someone is passed away from that, suppose that he is reborn in the human realm. Now he become an ascetic, he start practicing meditation, and after practicing he was able to develop the Pubbē Nivāsānussati, where he was able to recall the past life. But this person only can recall his previous past life, not anything more than that. He only can recall his immediate past life, and in that immediate past life he can't see much, he can't see any much of a kind of an existence. So he therefore decides, I was immediately born here by chance. So now I am in the human realm, so I have become existed by chance. Because I can't see my previous existence. So basically, he decides, okay, not being existed, now I have become existed. Now I am existing. Previously I was not existing. So mere by chance I have come to an existence. Now here also basically meditation based. Now, so his existence basically he accepts, or he perceives happened due to a chance, not coming from any sort of a proper cause and conditions. Rather he simply say, okay, it has happened merely by chance. So this is another wrong view, because as you all know, it is due to conditionality that things are going on. So what Buddha also mentioned is the Patissamuppada. So this wandering in samsara happens because of causes, particularly avidya and tanha, ignorance and the craving. So they are the two supporting conditions, again and again giving the wrong the ground and the moisture to continue the consciousness. That consciousness is also not a eternal consciousness, rather it is also dependent. When the five aggregates being supported momentarily again and again, so kind of a continuation happens. Things are happening due to causes, due to conditions. But here these people completely reject that. Such as it's called adicca samuppanna. Not patissamuppanna, but adicca samuppanna. Things are happening due to mere chance. There are no causes, there are no conditions. Mere chance is there. So this is another wrong view which is explained. And then as the 17th, the next form of wrong view, that is also adicca samuppanna. And there he is actually, 18th one, he is actually a logician. He is a reasoner. He basically think. And by thinking, by logically thinking, by reasoning, he decides, okay, things are happening due to mere chance. the whole world, the beings are happening, arising by chance. That there is no any particular cause, there is no any kind of karma or any of those influencing factors, but things are happening by mere chance. So he's basically coming to that conclusion merely by the logic. Actually, so far we have discussed 18 wrong views. Among them, this 18th one is logic based, and then among the 4 finitism and infinitism, one is logic based, and then in the what we call ekacca sassatavada, another one is logic based. Among those 4, one is logic based, and sassatavada also one is logic based. But all the others are meditation based. So you can see one sense that when people are getting into meditation, when they are into concentration, the concentration can give certain skills, but not knowing properly handle them, how to properly handle them, one can come to a wrong view. So it's a kind of a danger. After explaining all these 18 wrong views, Buddha mentioned, okay, monks, these are basically the past based. All are speculators about the past, and all are wrong views. And Buddha understood all those 18, and further he understood, okay, by grasping, adhering any of these wrong views, what would be the consequences, what would be their final destination, their next birth, because of this kind of wrong grasping. So having understood the drawback, he has abandoned them. Basically, as a result of that, he has seen more than that, more sublime knowledge is there with the Buddha, more than this. And after he become liberated, so he is now proclaiming, he is now explaining how people can get tangled in these wrong views. So his service has to be measured, has to be appreciated based on this kind of a ground. So these monks are those other matters, profound, hard to see, hard to understand, only the wise people could understand. So those actually Buddha understood. And after realizing them, he is now explaining them, so that the spiritual people may not get trapped in them. And basically, so this is a very special point if someone were to appreciate the Buddha. So that is what actually highlighted here. And so in order to understand this, we may need certain amount of time, how people might get trapped in these wrong views. And again, after understanding also, we need to see whether we ourselves are being trapped. Do we have this sort of wrong view underneath? If so, we need to abandon them. If so, we also need to understand, okay, I am also trapped. I am also stuck in a wrong view. So that's why when it comes to the right views, so particularly the supramundane kind of right view does not allow us to trap in anything, grasping anything. So ultimately Buddha mentioned, okay, even the Dhamma you need to abandon. Dhammopi bhikkhave pahatabba pageva adhamma. So he basically summarized, even monks, Dhamma have to be abandoned. So no point of talking about the adhamma, the wrong teachings. Even the proper teaching you need to ultimately abandon, because teaching is there for you to cross, cross to the other shore, so that mind become completely liberated, not grasping anything in the world. So therefore, Buddha's teaching in that sense is quite unique, and even the Dhamma he is using as a rafter. Rafter is there for you to cross to the other shore, not to hold on, not to grasp, not to carry on, rather merely as a mean, as a tool to go to the other shore. Okay, with that I like to conclude today's Sutta teaching, and we'll discuss if you have any more questions.
Thank you, Bhante.
Okay, that's a question coming from our side. Yes, please go ahead.
Thank you, Bhante. So it's the Buddha is going through all these ways that we can grasp to reality, and because of grasping, we're losing the truth, which is everything is changing, and there's, so that's all. I just want to. It's very simple, but we make it complicated because we grasp to many different
ways.
So we have different ways of viewing ourselves in the world.
And certain, shades of these wrong views could be existing in our minds. Certain, it may not be we are thoroughly grasping a particular one, but certain shades may be available in our mind. Time to time we stand with one thing, we stand with another thing.
Yes.
So likewise, still our minds are so very much like we are dependent. Dependent in the sense we are still believing certain things. Not really, thoroughly contented, thoroughly, fulfilled, thoroughly confident. Time to time we grasp this and that. So I feel that more and more we are maturing in Dhamma. So the mind has to be fairly independent, fairly matured, so that mind does not want any sort of a grasping, any sort of an adherence. Rather, it's becoming more and more independent, more and more sort of liberated, not grasping anything in the world. So we'll see what else. Now we already only discussed 18. Some 44 is there.
And I guess also the Wrigglers, their views are it's really the same view of they're kind of avoiding everything. But they have different reasons for avoiding.
Exactly. So that's why Buddha here is trying to explain us all different possibilities. Why is those people, they are also doing the same, all those four groups actually telling the same thing, but they come to that conclusion due to different reasons. One come to that conclusion because of his mere stupidity. Other one comes to that reason because they are afraid of the debating. Other one comes to a conclusion that I might get distressed if these people keep on asking questions. So he want to escape somehow. So likewise, due to some different reason, they are trying to escape. When people are asking, they are this way, that way, they somehow slip. So, and on the other hand, say if we consider the finitism and infinitism, so they are also and certain, that certain concentrations are there where you can expand it. So even in the Buddhism or in the Dhamma, in the meditation, say for example, say you are supposed to expand your mind rather confining it. Certain meditations, like say for example in the Arupajala. So the mind has to be expanded, not that you are being bounded. So mind has to be expanded, so that you can expand it to all the different. So the whole universe you have to expand, like. So one can come to a even wrong view. Okay, is it infinite? Is this the whole world is infinite? So because now my perception is infinite. Say for example, Vinyanan Chayatana. Vinyanan Chayatana is infinite consciousness. But if someone is telling, okay, I am now experiencing infinite consciousness, So the whole world is infinite. So he might proclaim, okay, the whole world is proclaimed. The whole world is infinite.
Yeah.
So, but Buddha doesn't promote coming of such kind of a wrong view, even though the practice is available. Even though Akinchanyayatana, Vijnananchayatana, Akasananchayatana, those kinds of Arupa jhanas are available, that doesn't mean that the whole world is infinite, whole world is finite. So, coming up with wrong view is not the point. Rather, it's a temporary abiding. So, you are not being found a kind of a complete nibbana. Rather, a temporary jhanic blissful state is there for you to, enjoy. Assume that you are going on a long trip. In between, you get a guest house. So all the hot water is there, say good food is there, and good music is there. So you take a break. But that is not the destination. And that is not the destination. And again, you can't say, okay, even though the whole good food and everything is there, you can't conclude, okay, everything is really good, it's really marvelous.
This is
because
the place.
Only a place, only a small place. But the next time, again, you have to start your path, start your traveling.
If we think that's Nibbana, we might stick to it.
Stick to it.
I found it.
So it's simply a temporary guest house. So jhana is also, I feel like it's a kind of a guest house. Yeah, time to time you can enjoy it. If you feel a little dry, you can take a little break, have a pause and have a little tasty food and mental enjoyment. Some sort of because it is also, it doesn't promote any defilements. That's a good thing. So when you are there, it doesn't promote any lustful tendencies, and no any kind of resentment related, anger related tendencies either. Praganusaya and Patiganusaya are not there. But important thing is there is no much wisdom being drawn. You can temporarily stay there in a blissful way, but not much contribution towards the wisdom. That's why sometimes Vipassana people consider spending too much time in the jhana is kind of a waste of time. Because when you emerge from it, again you become vulnerable. The mind becomes vulnerable. The more and more the concentration power sort of loosen, mind further become vulnerable. Again thoughts can come, again defilements can come. So actually the fading off of defilement should be the sort of the proper approach. Say you see them properly, see them clearly, not being caught up to defilements. Okay, you are keeping it away. You are weakening them, abandoning them, uprooting them. So there is a proper loosening or weakening or uprooting of defilements in such kind of a path. Jahanuto bhikkave passato asavanam kayang vadami. So you have to properly see, you have to properly understand, then only you have a proper relinquishment from the defilements. So abandoning of the defilements, not by merely suppressing them by entering to a strong concentration, deeper concentration. So those two have to be properly understood.
So we have to balance
in a way.
Jhana and
exactly.
Vipassana.
Yes. Because too much concentration also is a cause to suppress defilements. And we might come to a wrong conclusion thinking now I am attained, I have no lust at all, I have no anger at all, so now I am a non-returner. You can come to a wrong conclusion. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So that's all from our side, Priyanka.
Okay.
Yeah.
Geshan, you can talk now.
Saranai Bhante, I really enjoyed the discussion today, and so it's more than a question. I thought of observation as well from this discussions that I sort of like as Brahmajala also sort of asked about that question. Like I was thinking for all these type of wrong views, I think one of the salvations what we have is the Satya, right? And so at this moment in time that you are in this moment, so as a child I remember during physics and talking about certain things, during it we were talking about the how infinite the space is, certain type of planets and the distance and whatnot. So we think about there are millions or thousands and millions of planets, or there can be a possibility for our existence as well in one of those planets. And I think, when I think of now with these type of back in the days what I thought, and so in a comparative way. So those are, of course, the incorrect views, what I feel, what I know now. And so I think the Sati is and this moment in time, we sort of think about it, and then you wonder what's the value of even debating on it. And you think of it now, because I think so that's one of the observations. And then you also mentioned with this talk, there are certain individuals don't give a right answer when somebody questions. Does that mean that what if you don't know? Does that mean you just give up, or you don't want to sort of be little and then try to evade from that? Is that what am I hearing on that question, or something different?
Now here actually, now say when a proper question being asked, typically it has to be properly understood and properly answered. But these people, due to one or other reason, they somehow try to escape. When someone is asking whether, assume that we'll take a little question, say, is it unwholesome to kill animals? When someone is asking, so these people might say, I am not saying that it is unwholesome. Also, I am not saying it is wholesome. And I am not saying it is wholesome and unwholesome. I am not saying it is not wholesome, not unwholesome. So likewise, that that Chatuskotika, the type of tarka, so that using that they escape. Either way, they are not giving a proper answer, a definite answer. They don't have a definite answer for any question. That's why they are called eel wrigglers. So they somehow slip the question, not giving a kind of a solid answer.
Yes, now it makes sense, because my understanding earlier was, maybe like during the Madhupindika Buddha says, like my debate is not to debate. And so it is not that, but it's something to say. Now it makes very clear.
And Buddha also sometimes actually didn't answer certain questions. Now when people are asking whether the world is finite, he kept silence. And when people are asking whether the world is infinite, again he was silent. And sometimes people might argue, okay, then Buddha also like Amaravikkepavada. But when certain person asks, okay, what do you know about, say, the killing animals? Is it wholesome or unwholesome? He definitely says it is unwholesome. That's why he advocates the sila. And when someone is asking, okay, what is useful for your practice? He definitely answers. So likewise, his argument related to these kind of questions, what we call the world is finite, world is infinite, all that is that these are waste of your time. Because, I mean, the Loka Visaya, the whole world systems and their origin and all that are very much like beyond our capacity to know. One can simply tell one thing and another thing, and we can either believe it because we can't verify them, and keep on thinking like them on them is a utter waste of time, because you are still suffering. Either if you have a question or not, still the suffering is suffering. Say for example, say tomorrow that the NASA finds out, okay, there is another galaxy millions of light years far away. Good. So is there any kind of a big impact on you? Are you free from suffering after hearing it? No. So basically, there is a question right now. How do I reduce my suffering? What is the cause of suffering? And what is the cessation of suffering? And is there a way leading to the cessation of suffering? So that's why Buddha particularly highlight, if you want to think about based on the Four Noble Truths. Apply it in an introspective way. Apply it to yourself. Look at yourself. What is the state of mind I am in currently? Am I going through any kind of a distress? Am I going through any kind of a suffering? Any kind of an unrest? Is it available in my mind currently, at this moment? So if there is, then there should be a cause for that, and understand that cause. And now you need to abandon that cause. And if you properly done that, there should be a sort of a contentment. There should be a release of the unhappiness, the suffering. There should be a cessation of suffering. So likewise, so he continuously answered various questions. Even other people came and argued with them. He properly went through them. And there are certain questions he didn't answer.
Yes, I understand, and so I think if NASA comes and find out that there is another planet exists a million light years away, I think a person, nowadays, especially in US, there is a space war and more than to reach to certain destinations, and people get even more agitated, I guess, rather than getting content. So thank you so much. I really appreciate this talk. Thero Saranai.
Yeah, Thero Saranai.
But there seems to be no question in the audience.
Right. So then actually we'll wind up the session. Basically we have spent 1 hour discussing this Brahmajala Sutta. And after completing actually these all different wrong views, we see what is the mechanism, what are the techniques that Buddha preaching to overcome these. Before getting to that, actually we need to somewhat explore these different wrong views that we may have to spend some time. We need to be patient with it, and again need to understand the danger in these views and how easily one can get into these wrong views. And there are the sort of advantage for us, there is a blessing for us that Buddha has given this sort of a teaching. But in certain other sects, in certain other religions, so they simply proclaim one sort of a view, and that is being sort of confirmed. It is not allowed to question, and you are very much like forced to believe. But here Buddha explained all different possibilities, different views available in certain religions, available in certain sects, and his invitation is to abandon all wrong views. So that's fairly interesting, and he encompassed the whole different set of views, and he basically concluded, okay, this is the only possibilities available, not more than that. So it basically shows that his sort of completeness, the capacity with respect to this spiritual context. Okay, we'll conclude today's Sutta teaching session and we'll recite the traditional verses. Ettavata ca amhehi sambatang punya sampadang sabbe deva anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhya එත්තාවතා ච අම්හෙහි සම්බතං පුඤ්ඤ සම්පදං සබ්බේ භූතා අනුමෝදන්තු සබ්බ සම්පatti සිද්ධියා එත්තාවතා ච අම්හෙහි සම්බතං පුඤ්ඤ සම්පදං සබ්බේ සත්තා අනුමෝදන්තු සබ්බ සම්පatti සිද්ධියා ආකාසට්ඨා ච බුම්මට්ඨා දේවා නාග මහිද්దికා පුඤ්ඤන්තං අනුමෝදිත්වා චිරං රක්ඛන්තු ශාසනං ආකාසට්ඨා ච බුම්මට්ඨා දේවා නාග මහිද්దికා පුඤ්ඤන්තං අනුමෝදිත්වා චිරං රක්ඛන්තු දේශනං ආකාසට්ඨා ච බුම්මට්ඨා දේවා නාග මහිද්దికා පුඤ්ඤන්තං අනුමෝදිත්වා චිරං රක්ඛන්තු මම් පරං ඉදං වෝ ඥාතිනං හෝතු සුඛිතා හොන්තු ඥාතයෝ ඉදං වෝ ඥාතිනං හෝතු සුඛිතා හොන්තු ඥාතයෝ ඉදං වෝ ඥාතිනං හෝතු සුඛිතා හොන්තු ඥාතයෝ ඉමිනා පුඤ්ඤ කම්මේන මාමේ බාල සමාගමෝ සතං සමාගමෝ හෝතු යාව නිබ්බාන පත්තියා ඉමිනා පුඤ්ඤ කම්මේන මාමේ බාල සමාගමෝ සතං සමාගමෝ හෝතු යාව නිබ්බාන පත්තියා ඉමිනා පුඤ්ඤ කම්මේන මාමේ බාල සමාගමෝ සතං සමාගමෝ හෝතු යාව නිබ්බාන පත්තියා සාදු සාදු සාදු